record. Okay. Where we left off was the settlement of the lawsuit, and you settled out of court, and you said that was kind of the end of that chapter, and that took about 5 years. So tell me where we are on the timeline again, age-wise and year-wise.
So in the interim, so that would have been, I'm just trying to think what would have been, because I didn't pursue the lawsuits. So what I basically did is I talked to Brad, who was my partner, and I had like 15% of the company, and I negotiated. I said, look, I don't want to be, I'll turn up to depositions, but this is not going to be my full-time job. There's no way I'm going to spend, the next year or 2 years, and it ended up turning out to be 5 years suing somebody. So it's just like, I wanted to move on. So I negotiated a lower rate, and he ran point on it. And we would never, it was a full-time job for him for many years. And,
wow.
But meanwhile, what I did is I moved to Florida. And well, actually, I did two things. The first thing I did is I moved to the Bahamas because I tried to set up the same business in the Bahamas as I had in Mexico. So Batelco was the Bahamas telephone company. And because it was also a monopoly, it was really expensive. But the same sort of theory applied, that you put a switch in Florida, and the calls to Florida were a lot cheaper than the calls anywhere else in the US. But there wasn't such a big rate difference. But I spent like 6 months in the Bahamas, basically trying to set up a business there. And in the end, I just realized there wasn't a big enough rate discrepancy. And there was a weird thing in the Bahamas where even though it was a monopoly, like in Mexico, there was a monopoly and everybody hated the telephone company because it was just such bad service. But in the Bahamas, Batelco, it was a monopoly, but everyone felt sort of like nationalistic towards them, and it was much more difficult. So I spent 6 months living in the Bahamas, and then I moved to Florida, and that's where I started a new chapter of my life, which is that I got a job, the first job I've had since I had a paper round. And I got a job. I was at a trade show. It was on telecommunications in Latin America. And I thought I'd hang out at the trade show. And, I approached a booth, and there was this guy, who had this theory, and it was a reverse IPO. So the same thing at the company that I worked with in California years ago. They're basically a penny stock company, and they took a public company. It was a penny stock company, and he was all about advertising, and so he wanted to provide sort of like feedback for magazines. So the basic concept was this. And I'll go relatively quickly through this, but the concept is this: at the back of a magazine, you could have a little pull-out card, you could fill it out, and you could say which products you were interested in. You would send it in. It was very manual. What he wanted to do was set up a system where you could dial an 800 number, and you could put in the codes of the product you like, and then people would send you more information on the products. And it was something that he wanted to do in Latin America, and so he started this company called TradeLink. The idea of TradeLink is they would need they need technology to do this. So when I approached the booth, I knew the technology that he would need. I knew, what he would need. So I started mentioning to him that he needs a voicemail system, and, just the type of systems that he would use because of my telecom days. And so he offered me a job. And to have 5% of the company. And since the company was going to go public, it was a reverse IPO. So he had a partner who was an attorney. He was going to, build up the value of the company. It would go public. That could be worth a lot of money. So I thought, you know what? I've never worked for a large company before. It might be interesting to see what the other side of the spectrum is like, where a company really well funded and it's not, bootstrapping it. It's not entrepreneurship. And so I took the deal with the company. And a long story short, we imported some technology. I bought some technology in Florida, called an Octel voicemail system. I needed to install it in Mexico. And the person who sold it to me was a guy called Al Sackett. And Al Sackett, ended up being my partner after this, because what happened is, these guys, once they felt like I'd done my job, I found an email, basically, that basically, was between him and the attorney, that they were planning to sort of like get rid of me and dilute my stock as soon as I'd done my job in Latin America.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was like, no, not Al Sackett, Richard Herbst.
Okay.
And so, without going into too many details, it's like, I mean, if you want to, I'll tell you the one fun story. So I knew this was happening. We got the voicemail down to Mexico. These guys didn't want to import it in the right way. So it's about $100,000 piece of equipment. They didn't want to import it in the right way and pay, $20,000, $30,000 in taxes, because that's what it would cost to import it in the right way. So they declared it for a lower amount of money. And so when I found out what they were going to do to me, Richard came down to Mexico. He didn't know that I knew. He came down to Mexico, and he came down to give me the bad news that he was going to fire me, sort of thing. Now that my job was done. And, when he came into the office there, I had a judicialis, like a policeman, like a full, in full uniform, meet him and take him to the conference room and make him sit down. And we sweated him for about an hour. And I basically then told him, I said, this guy is from the judicialis. You've imported the machine in the incorrect way. You're going to have to, because this company was going public, you're going to have to notify your shareholders that you're under investigation by the Mexico police for importing the products in the right way. And then I basically got the guy to leave, and I said, you know what, Richard? He is a judicialis, but he's off duty. I paid him $500 to come in here today. The next phone call is to the judicialis or to his boss. And what I promised you was going to happen will happen. But now you've got the ability to unwind it. And so I negotiated my severance with him then.
Wow. This is definitely a movie. Wow.
So I only told Amber about this a few months ago. She never even knew the story, but
that's pretty high level.
Well, I mean, I like, my attitude is this. And I swear this is true. Amber knows it's true. It's like, I am incredibly fair to people. Integrity is a huge deal to me until I'm screwed, until somebody shows me that they're going to treat me badly. And then, it's walk softly and carry a big stick. I mean, it's like, you need, especially operating in Latin America, I gave everybody the benefit of the doubt, but if they showed me who they were, I believed them. And it was like, then the gloves were off. And, he was intending to do something to me, the settlement I made was fair. I basically took the system. I said, the system is worth this. It's my stock in theory is worth a hell of a lot more than that, but clearly I don't want to have any stock in a company that you're in charge of. Give me the system. And they gave, and the settlement was like 4 months worth of salary, which was enough money for me to start my first business. So I called up Al Sackett, who sold us the system in the first place, and we went into partnership, 50-50 partnership. And we set up a voicemail service, an Octel voicemail service that eventually it started as Triacom, and it eventually became Corsidian, which is the company I sold in 2011.
Can you spell all three of those? What did you call it? An octal?
Octel, OCTEL, voicemail. So that's sort of like the standard of voicemail system. So let me explain quickly what a voicemail system is. So it used to be, before email, that if you're a salesperson, you'd use a voicemail system. And a voicemail system is you dial up to a central number and you'd put, so it's very similar technology that I use as I used along the border, right? And so you